Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I have for you today my top 10 favorite thrillers, and I'm really excited to talk about all of these because thriller is my favorite genre. So I have some good ones here to recommend to you to talk about. I'm going to be talking about them from my least favorite to my favorite, so from 10 to 1. So yeah, these are going to be the top 10 thrillers that I read in 2021. Obviously, I recommend them all for different reasons, but we will get into that for each one. Coming in at number 10, we have Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This is more technically a horror than a thriller. I did add it on this list because I do love Riley Sager. This is my least favorite one of his so far though, but again, I think that is because it's more horror based than it is thriller. The concept and idea behind this book was so well done and so genius that I really did overall appreciate what this was about and how Riley Sager wrote it. I think it's incredible. It is last on this list, but I do want to include it still because I do think it is incredibly done. If you're more into horror and haunted houses and really scary paranormal books, then this one is good. There was just something that was missing for me, but I still definitely recommend it. All right, and then coming in at number 9, we have Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. I really enjoyed this one because how the author told this story was really fantastic and it was unique. I do have to commend it for that, but the plot twist wasn't my favorite. Still really great, and the atmosphere is quite spectacular as well. I'm gonna read a little bit of the synopsis for you so you get a better idea. Things have been wrong for Mr. and Mrs. Wright for a long time. Every anniversary, the couple exchanged traditional gifts, paper, cotton, pottery, tin, and each year, Adam's wife writes him a letter that she never lets him read. Until now. When Adam and Amelia went a weekend away to Scotland, it might be just what their marriage needs. They both know this weekend will make or break their relationship, but they didn't randomly win this trip. One of them is lying, and someone doesn't want them to live happily ever after. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of secrets, and an anniversary they will never forget. Very atmospheric, very well written. I just wish the plot twist went a different direction, but still great nonetheless. And number 8, we have another Riley Sager, which is The Last Time I Lied. Another very atmospheric thriller, so if you're into that, this one is great. It's set at a summer camp following a bunch of different characters, but mostly you're following Emma Davis, who once attended this camp when she was 13 years old. She had these 3 friends that she bunked with. While they're at camp, those 3 girls end up going missing. They disappear. Emma believes that it's her fault, but we don't really know why. She just keeps saying that it's her fault. So you jump 15 years later to when Emma goes back to the camp as a counselor. She is asked to teach art to the kids. Once she goes back, familiar faces, unchanged cabins, and the same dark lake haunt Nightingale, even though the camp is opening its doors for the first time since the disappearances. Emma is even assigned to the same cabin she slept in as a teenager, but soon discovers a security camera, the only one on the property, pointed directly at its door. As she digs deeper, Emma finds herself sorting through lies from the past while facing mysterious threats in the present. And the closer she gets to the truth about Camp Nightingale and what really happened to her friends, the more she realizes that closure could come at a deadly price. Very interesting, but it is descriptive as well, which makes it a longer book. So when it is longer, it is typically less thrilling for me. I really like short and fast-paced ones. So that is why this is number 8 on the list, but I did really love it. All right, and number 7, we have Ace of Spades by Farida Abike-Yamide. This one is quite different. It's more dark academia, and it is super powerful and super moving. These 2 kids are having to go through racism within this school. They're being blackmailed by this mysterious person called Aces, who's sending out mass messages to the entire school. They don't know why. Like, they're being targeted clearly. They're determined to figure it out. They're determined to seek justice. This is her debut novel. I think it's incredible. She did a wonderful job at creating a super moving masterpiece that I think everyone needs to read. So impactful, such great storytelling, very thrilling and scary at times too, but like it's just so good. You just can't stop. You can't put it down. I highly, highly recommend this one. Number 6, are you surprised? We have another Riley Sager, Final Girls, and this one is more of a slasher novel, and a lot of people don't don't necessarily enjoy it compared to his other books because this is his first one that he wrote, so his writing style is a little bit different, but I really enjoyed it, and it might be because I read it first. The characters are very interesting, the plot is very interesting, the writing style is easy and fast to read. It's not hard to follow along. So if you don't know what a final girl is, it's basically the last girl standing at the end of a slasher horror movie. So she's the one who avenges everyone else and is able to get away while also killing the killer. So in this, you're following one main final girl, but there are two other ones that you meet. First, there were 3 final girls, then there were 2. Can there only ever be one final girl? So you're following the main character, Quincy, who had her traumatic experience happen 10 years ago. She's been trying to deal with all that trauma and she's been doing well, but then she hears word that another one of the final girls has died, and it's said to be a suicide, but she doesn't believe that, so she thinks that someone killed her. And then the second final girl, whose name is Sam, she shows up at Quincy's doorstep. Sam seems intent on making Quincy relive the past with increasingly dire consequences, all of which makes Quincy question why Sam has sought her out. And when new details about Lisa, the other final girl, her death come to light, Quincy's life becomes a race against time as she tries to unravel Sam's truths from her lies, evade the police and hungry reporters, and most crucially, remember what really happened at Pine Cottage before what was started 10 years ago is finished. So she is struggling to remember a lot of the details of her experience from the night which she became a final girl. But yeah, it's very good and very interesting, and I would highly recommend it. Coming in at number 5, I do not have the physical copy of this, but I would really love to so that I can reread it, because this one is stellar in my opinion. There are mixed reviews and stuff like that, but it is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I love this thriller so much because it is one of the first ones that I read this year, and it is one of the ones that solidified to me that I enjoy thrillers the most. But this is a very good beginner thriller. So if you're looking to get into the genre and don't really know where to start, or you don't want to get too freaked out right away, I would definitely recommend this one. It is a domestic thriller, and a lot of the time in this book, it is kind of streamlined without much intensity happening. Then there's the one major plot twist that really caught me off guard. I thought it was fantastic. I thought this book was really extraordinary, and I can understand why some people don't like it, but it has a special place in my heart because I remember being so thrown off by the plot twist. This is about a wife who kills her husband and then goes mute and will not talk to anybody about what happened. So then there's this therapist slash psychiatrist, I believe, who meets with her and tries to get her to speak, get her to tell the truth and talk about the day that she killed her husband. Then you're also reading through entries in her journal, trying to interweave those parts with what's happening in the present, and it's just very, very interesting, very good. I was definitely gripped by this story, and again, the plot twist was spectacular for me. So yeah, that is number 5. And number 4, we have 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard. This was quite a surprise for me. I had not heard at all about Catherine Ryan Howard, but this is her most recent one. Thanks to Book of the Month, I was able to find out about it and get my hands on it. Looks like she's written 2 other books. This one was a surprise because I didn't know what to expect, and this one is majorly revolving around the pandemic. I was kind of iffy about that, but I also thought it was very intriguing. I was curious to see how a book about something that we've lived through would translate. So this is a romance thriller. So they meet just before the pandemic hits. They decide to move in together, and then they end up getting quarantined together. There's lots of time jumps and perspectives in this book, and I think that's what I really enjoyed. Although if you're not really paying attention, you could get confused, but I was really invested in this. It did feel like we were running around in circles a lot, but I thought it was all completely worth it. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars because I was blown away unexpectedly. No one ever knew they were together. Now one of them is dead. So yes, I didn't say that. That is a key part in the story. One of them ends up dead after they've moved in and quarantined together. Now there's a murder mystery going on. So it's really, really good. There's a lot to unpack in here, even though it looks short. Every chapter leaves you with nothing. Like, you're just like, oh my gosh, tell me what is going on. Like, there's no puzzle pieces really being put together for a long time, but it still keeps everything so interesting after every chapter. I couldn't put it down because it was so good. Coming in at number 3, we have Verity by Colleen Hoover. This one is so good, so thrilling. I was on the edge of my seat reading this. Couldn't put it down. I was so into this one. It was crazy. However, I did give it a 4.75, but as you can see, it is ranked at number 3. And that's because the writing in here was so gripping and so thrilling, and that is like the number one thing I want out of my thrillers, for them to be so thrilling and so crazy and chaotic and intense. And this one delivered for me. There were lots of creepy moments, lots of times where my heart rate went up just by the way that Colleen Hoover wrote it. It's just crazy that reading words can make me have that kind of reaction. I think that's incredible. So when any book can do that, it automatically gets high praise from me. So I did really love this one, but it did get a 4.75 because of the ending. It's very open-ended and you're questioning still lots of things and you don't get full closure. And it felt a little cheap, like a little bit of a cheap ending. It was a little bit rushed. Like I said, not a lot was solved enough for me to give it 5 stars. The experience and the journey of this was impeccable. Definitely love this one. Rude, my battery dying when I have 2 more left to talk about. Are you guys ready for my top 2 favorite thrillers? I love these with my whole heart and soul. I would give anything for these 2 books. Ew, not me schmeagle looking. I literally would do anything for these next 2 books. I love them so much. I don't even know why. And if anybody ever talks bad about them, it hurts. It hurts really bad. Okay, and it was a little bit hard to decide like which one is number 2, which one is number 1, but I do have good reasoning for why they are the way they are. My number 2 favorite thriller of this year, Survive the Night by Riley Sager. Oh wow, this book is so good and I don't know why people don't like it. I mean, it doesn't get the best of the best reviews on Goodreads for some reason. I don't know why people don't like it. It is so good. Like, it is just classic thriller, classic suspense, on the edge of your seat. Again, like I need thrillers that just leave me on the edge of my seat, and if it does that, it's amazing. The reason I think I love this one so much is because it has one of my favorite tropes, which is cars. When cars are involved, when road trips are involved, when sketchy people driving cars are involved, when the main character is trapped with someone suspicious, that is one of my favorite tropes. So this one is set in a car, well, not for the whole time, but that's how you start out. You follow this main character named Charlie, who wants to leave college and go home because her best friend was just murdered by someone called the campus killer. She's very scared to continue being at college, so she's willing to do whatever it takes to get home. And so what she decides to do is hitch a ride with a stranger. She's going to Ohio and it's like a 6-hour drive, and she's hitching a ride with a complete stranger. Important detail, this is set in 1991, so of course there are no cell phones. I really love it when the main character makes terrible decisions because that just makes for a phenomenal story. And the twists were crazy. I had such a fun time with it. Very thrilling because she's in this car with the stranger and she doesn't know if she can trust him anymore. She's in this car and he's saying lots of sketchy things that makes her think he's the one who killed her best friend. And now she thinks that she's going to die too. If you haven't read it, please do. It's so good. I love it. And I really hope you do too if you end up reading it. Don't get mad at the main character though, okay? She's a sweetheart. She makes dumb decisions, but she's going through a tough time, okay? So give her a break. Just read it, okay? Just read it. Now I'm very excited to talk about my number 1 favorite thriller because it just makes me so happy to like talk about this book. I love this book. It makes me so happy every time I think about it. I wish I could go back and reread it for the first time again. And I also don't have a physical copy of this one. I read it on my Kindle. I need a physical copy so that I can reread it again. I love this thriller so much. Guys, I just get so hyped up about this thriller. My number 1 favorite thriller of all time, but I read it this year, so of 2021, is No Exit by Taylor Adams. You probably already knew that. If you've been around for a while, you know that this is my number 1 favorite. I mean, it was very close to being a tie with Survive the Night, but it did top it because the atmosphere was 10 out of 10. The plot twists were 10 out of 10. The plot twist in here was less surprising, a little bit, probably about like that much less surprising than the plot twist in No Exit. Plot twist in No Exit blew my socks off. I was freaking out reading this book. This one follows a girl also going home from college to see her mother who's dying of cancer, and she gets stuck in a snowstorm, and so she has to stop at this rest stop where there are a group of strangers also stranded here. They can't leave this rest stop. The roads are completely covered and it's just too dangerous to be driving anywhere. She gets stuck at this rest stop and she notices that one of the cars in the parking lot has a child trapped inside. She gets herself wrapped up in the middle of this kidnapping, and she knows that one of the strangers inside the rest stop is responsible, obviously, because it's one of their cars and this child is trapped in the van. And it just goes hard, this whole story. I would make everyone read it if I could, but I understand it's not everyone's cup of tea. If you're watching this, I'm assuming you're also a thriller lover, so if you haven't read this one, you have to read it. I don't want to set your expectations super high because then like you read it and then you're disappointed and then I'm disappointed, but I loved this book so much because I just couldn't believe what I was reading. It's very unrealistic at times, but I love that. I think that's so fun to read about because it is fiction, first of all. Obviously things have to like physically make sense, but if it's so out there and so beyond real life, then I'm gonna eat it up. Like, that's just so exciting to me. But there's also really crazy stuff out there in the real world that when you read this, it's not that far-fetched, unfortunately. This one is just so incredible. The way Taylor Adams makes you feel like you're the main character going through all this crazy stuff and you have to save this child. You have to go through this with her and you're rooting for her. She's a very unsuspecting heroine in this story because you're just thinking like, how is a average college girl gonna save the day here? Like, how is this gonna all play out? Oh, and it plays out in such a crazy way. It's just so good. I love it. So definitely that is #1 on my list, and if you are to read any of these, I would hope it would be that one, but I also recommend every other one I talked about today. So that is gonna be it for my top 10 favorite thrillers of 2021. I do also have another video coming where I will be tier ranking every single thriller I read this year. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you plan to read any of these thrillers, please let me know. If you have read any of these thrillers, please let me know your thoughts. I hope you guys are all doing well, and I will see you in my next video.